Sleep is not negotiable. It's totally negotiable if you want dog health, dog results, dog appearance, fine, sleep. If you want to be serious about eating as lean as you can, as healthy as you can, and perform as well as you can in your sport, sleep must be a priority. My wife and I were psychotic workaholics. We never, ever, ever sleep.
All right. Dr. Mike Israetel, is it possible to lose fat and build muscle at the same time?
Yes, but with a few caveats. That dedicated phases of building muscle while fat grows a little bit, or dedicated phases of fat loss while muscle is simply just retained, over time work faster to make those changes than if you try to do them at the same time. But if you try to do muscle growth and fat loss at the same time, there are a couple of really good tips to make sure that your probability of success is increased.
Today's video is brought to us by Bond Charge and their sauna blanket. If you don't have the space for a massive sauna, then I definitely recommend you try Bond Charge's sauna blanket. It's an infrared sauna blanket, super low EMF, and we're talking getting up to like over 170 degrees, so you can get your sweat on, you can get that benefit in a very portable way. Now, I'm not talking like fit it in your suitcase on an airplane type portable, but definitely easy to fold up into like a 1.5 by 1.5 foot area that you could bring in your car with you. So if I'm traveling, going to a hotel or something like that on the road, super easy to bring my sauna with me. You've heard me talk about the benefits as far as heat shock proteins, as far as lymphatic system, helping the brain, helping you sleep. So now you can take it with you or have it even in a small space. Maybe you've got an apartment or something like that. So I popped a link down below that also saves you some money if you want to try one out. So there's a discount link down below, first line of the description underneath this video. You've got to check them out. They're doing some really, really cool stuff and awesome to see something so portable.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's start with 1.
Okay.
And then we can count. We can go 2.
Sure.
Ready? 1. You didn't get my joke.
I didn't.
Okay. Anyway,
what's number 1? So smart. The number 1 tip to
lose fat and build muscle at
the same time. This is a really not nice way to answer this question, but I'll do it anyway. Be a beginner. When people are first starting out, first year of training, just resistance training and eating decently, which I can describe in a second what that means, can get you a ton of fat loss and a ton of muscle gain at the same time. I promise there's a value in me saying this, and here it is. If you happen to find yourself either for the first time taking training and diet seriously, or coming back to it after months or years of laying off, a lot of people will say, hey, listen, like I'm getting back into lifting, or I'm getting into lifting. I want to build muscle, I want to lose fat. What should I do as far as bulking? Should I bulk or should I cut? That's typically the question. My answer usually is, if you're within the first year of real serious approach, don't do either. Just eat for maintenance, keeping your body weight roughly the same. Because you're a beginner, you're able to stimulate fat loss and muscle gain at the same time. You get an awesome recomposition effect. And so you can take advantage of that. Psychologically, dieting is a little bit of a pain in the ass. It costs you something to have to think about restriction. Never mind the hunger that restriction causes or the feelings of overfullness and slight fatness that surplus causes. Maintenance is the easiest way to diet. All you have to do as a human being in that regard is just focus on eating high quality foods and plenty of them, maintaining your weight roughly. Your hunger signals usually do that for you pretty well. And for 1 year straight, you can gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. That's not something that happens in a huge way for people later down the line. You might as well pick up the easy gold coins. You know, like playing Sonic the Hedgehog and there's gold coins here, but then you can jump 5 stories and try to get the 1 coin. That 1 coin. Stick to the 4 easy gold coins. Just maintain your body weight, eat well, train with weights, and for a year at least as a beginner, you can do this recomposition thing. It's the easiest thing to do, and it's ultra effective, and the visual appeal is cool. And as a beginner, so many people burn out at the beginner stage. That's the stage to burn out at, right? When people have been lifting for 10 years, we're not so worried about them just quitting all of a sudden. Most of the time, they're in it for good. But when people have been lifting for a few months or eating well for a few months, they're shaky and their habits are not very well ingrained. And we want to make it as easy as possible for them to stick to those goals. If they don't have to purposefully cut their food and have low energy levels and hunger and anger, if they don't have to purposefully stuff themselves and eat a bunch of food they don't want to, if we just let them cook for a year, just healthy habits and good training, it's such a minimum bar to pass, but you get such great results. And then after a year, hey, they lasted a year. It means they want it a little bit. That means they built some decent habits. Now you can tell that person, like, okay, Becky, you started at 150 pounds, totally untrained a year ago. You now, a year later, weigh 150, but you are substantially leaner and more muscular. And then you look at her body and you decide with her, okay, another 3 months, fat loss phase, 10 pounds off. Then you can generate deficit. But she has those awesome habits built of knowing how to lift weights, knowing how to eat well. So then just cutting out some calories is easy. Whereas you bring someone new into the gym/eating scenario and you're like, all right, I want you to eat like this. I want you to train like this. And they're like, okay. And I want you to cut 500 calories on top of that. And then they're miserable. Everything sucks. And they think dieting and lifting are unsustainable. So a big thing for building muscle and burning fat at the same time is if you're a beginner, absolutely take advantage of that.
Interesting. I mean, it's almost, it kind of parallels, you're familiar with the nature study, like the rhesus monkeys, the Wisconsin and the Bethesda, Maryland, like on the longevity side, where they were like, had one group of, it was like, as Peter Attia put it, like a Herculean study. I mean, it'll never, ever be done again because it was just, okay, they figured that part out and they're like, yeah, we're never going to do that again. That was way too much money, too much time. 26 years.
Yeah.
They had
primate studies are intense.
It's ridiculous. And so like, I think it was the Wisconsin monkeys that were fed just like a monkey chow kind of crap food, right? And then the Bethesda, Maryland ate a more nutrient dense diet. Essentially, they were kind of measuring if nutrient quality or deficit like made a difference in longevity. Essentially, in that particular case, like the crappy diet was the only version where the deficit actually improved their longevity. Whereas when they were eating like same amount of calories in a certain different situation, when they were actually eating nutrient dense foods, then the deficit really didn't make much of a difference to their longevity. And it kind of like, I can see the similarities from a body composition standpoint, because you're like, okay, all of a sudden you pivot, even if it's the same amount of calories, like there's going to be a body composition change. One world we're talking about longevity, but at the end of the day, they kind of come together, right? So it's almost like you get, hey, eat the same amount of calories, but I want you to focus, and chances are, and you and I both know this, if they try to eat the same amount of calories in nutrient-dense whole foods, they're probably going to be in a deficit.
Yes. It's tough to eat healthy food in the same amounts you used to eat Cheetos in because it's not nearly as tasty. Extreme tasty. It's still very good. And the other thing is you're introducing resistance training. Resistance training is the ultimate potentiator of recomposition because it's pure hypertrophy driver. Resistance training, so if you take in a hypercaloric diet, more calories than you need, that does potentiate muscle growth, but it also potentiates and provides fuel for adiposity increase. It increases body fat. Just lifting weights has no effect on your body fat. As a matter of fact, a slight decrease independently, but there's a huge independent anabolic increase for muscle. So if you eat the same calories you always did, you eat healthier food, plenty of protein, and you start resistance training, lifting weights for a year or longer, you can burn fat and build muscle at the same time in a way that may not be the same card trick when you're 3 years into lifting or 5 years into lifting.
So if someone were in a pretty serious deficit, though, if they wanted to go that route, or maybe they were more advanced, this is like putting beginners aside for a second, if they put themselves in, let's say, I don't know, 500 to 1,000 calorie deficit, pretty intense, but they kept protein very high or even increased their protein to the point where needs are met and beyond. Would they still lose muscle mass throughout that? Or if protein needs are met, are they usually pretty secure in that?
That's a good question. You can only deal in probabilities in these things because people are all very different and conditions are very different. So unfortunately, I can't blanket secure anyone from the idea that they may lose muscle mass in a deficit. You get 100 people to do the same deficit, you overfeed protein for all of them. Some number of them will still lose muscle. Some number of them will gain freaky amounts of muscle. Most of them, more direct version of answering your question, most of them will not lose appreciable muscle mass, if any at all. So if you have enough protein intake, that is absolutely a big deal to making sure that you're not losing muscle at the same time as you are fat. This is especially pertinent recently with the rise of the anorectic drugs, the GLP agonists, Ozempic and things like that. A lot of people have reported that Ozempic makes them small and weak. And then you go, okay, well, how much protein are you eating? And they're like, I just eat the same diet as always. I'm not hungry, so I don't eat as much. And it's like, oh, God damn it. Didn't anyone tell you this? So yes, high protein intakes, gram per pound or so on average, is going to it's going to add a big security blanket to the probability of muscle loss. Next thing that I think is very effective for preventing muscle loss is, drumroll, resistance training, lifting weights. And a lot of people who are trying to lose weight they do not do resistance training. Look at all the people at gyms just doing cardio and then leaving. People doing at-home workout DVDs. Nothing wrong with that. But what they do is they lose 50 pounds and 15 pounds of that is muscle. They look better, but they also look a little skinnier. People at work aren't like, oh my God, you look so amazing. They're like, are you good? And you're like, what do you mean? They're like, you're not sick, are you? And you're like, no, God damn it. Why are people asking me that? Well, because you lost a lot of muscle and fat. There's a whole thing of, they call it Ozempic face and Ozempic butt. And look, like bodybuilders, competitive bodybuilders have more Ozempic face than anyone else.
Yeah, death face.
Yeah. But the rest of their body looks dope because they're eating a lot of protein and resistance training. And here's what I'll say about resistance training. So far we have eat enough protein, resistance train, but here's the detail of how to resistance train. You have to make sure that you hit every muscle in your body that you want to preserve with at least some decent amount of volume, which means you're challenging the muscle a few times a week and you're letting it recover just on time for next time. So that means training every muscle in your body roughly 2 to 4 times per week with something like 3 to 6 or 3 to 7 sets per session per muscle. So if you're going in there 3 times a week, you're hitting 5 sets of chest, 5 sets of quads, 5 sets of back, 5 sets of arms, etc. You're very likely doing enough to stave off muscle loss. What you don't want to do is do either insufficient volume or insufficient frequency. So here's what I mean by that. If you're resistance training, but you only do like 1 set of quads every week and you're doing 15,000 steps per day for cardio, you're going to lose some quad size because 1 set is not enough. Maybe more like 5 to 15 sets of quads per week is something that's really going to spare muscle. The other thing is frequency, especially for females. Females have smaller muscles. They recover quicker. They need more frequent challenging in order to not lose muscle. So if you train, let's say, delts once a week on a fat loss plan, your side delt is like 2 fingers worth of muscle. And that's if you're quite large. So if you're female and small, it's like your side delt's this big. It does not take 6 days to recover, which means you train it 1 session, it's going to grow some muscle, it's going to maintain for a few days, and then it's going to start receding in muscularity. You catch it 7 days later, you might have lost net muscle over that time. So every time you train your delts, they're coming up from a bigger deficit in muscle loss. And then over the course of 8 to 12 weeks, your shoulders don't have as much pop as they used to. So for females, training every muscle they want to conserve at least twice a week is a really big idea. For males, it's recommended, but it's going to make or break some female stuff. So sufficient volume, sufficient frequency, and attend to all the muscles of the body that you're interested in. So like some muscles like forearms and in many cases calves, they get so much ancillary work, they won't atrophy one way or another. But look, if you want a big chest and a big back and you're trying to lose fat, you better retrain that chest and back. You have to give the muscles a good reason to hang around, like a sufficient challenge to hang around. Because in a deficit condition, your body's looking around to where to get food and it goes, hey, skeletal muscle, you busy doing anything? And if it's like, not really, it's like, give me some of your protein. It's like, okay. Yeah. But if it's busy multiple times a week, getting some good solid volume, it's trying to grow, not enough nutrients to grow, but it grows a little bit and then steals nutrients out of other places to grow, then loses a little bit of itself later in the week, then grows a little bit, and over time, the averages out to no loss at all. So you got to train pretty hard and make sure you're attending to all your muscles frequently enough.
I think people they get lost in probably so much content, and they double click so much on nutrition that they forget that the biggest stimulus is the training.
By a long shot.
And it's like, I tell people in the fasting community, it's the same concept, exact same concept. That's why I was smirking when you were saying it. It's not just because you're cute. But when people are,
but also I am.
When people are fasting, it's like, okay, what's the difference between you as someone that's fasting and someone that's on their deathbed fasting? Like you
better have an answer to that.
Have the ability to be moving, right? And if you don't use it, you lose it. It's that simple, yes. Right? It's like if the body's saying like exactly that. You're in a fasted state. You're already like everything is kind of on the verge of catabolism to begin with.
Yes.
The simple answer is saying, hey, I'm going to go use this. The body's going to say, oh, you know what? That chest muscle is clearly necessary for survival, so we're not going to break that down. Yep. We're going to go over to this instead. Yep. And I usually recommend if you're fasting, train however you want to train. But like if you're really concerned about losing muscle in one specific area, train that friggin' area. Or
yes.
It's like
yes, because the train how you want to train is cool as far as like spirit advice, live your life. But a lot of people, what I have learned over the years, they have a lot of implicit expectations from a fat loss diet that they don't verbalize. And if you supply them with the diet and lifestyle they said they wanted, they say, well, I don't really care about muscle. Okay, so you just want to lose weight. Like, yeah, as long as I don't get like super skinny, I'm fine. You program some minimal amount of lifting for them. They get to their fat loss diet and they're like, I kind of thought it would be like rounder and shapelier and more jacked. And you're like, but you told me you don't give a shit about that. They're like, well, like, I didn't want to look like this. And you're like, okay, great. So from now on, I just assume that everyone that wants to lose fat wants to at least maintain their muscularity. And it's honestly a cooler look. Never mind the fact that it's metabolically much, much healthier for you. If you lose fat and muscle at the same time, it's better for you than just staying the same weight if you're overweight. But there are downsides. Your strength can fall down. Imagine, let's say, I like to oftentimes use older folks as examples because they're so close to their limits and ability that illustrations actually reveal something that matters. You get an 80-year-old to lose 30 pounds and 10 of that is muscle. She might not be able to close the trunk of her car anymore. She might not be able to put milk up to the top shelf anymore. This is a disabled person you're dealing with now. Muscle and strength matter, and less on the ability level, but more on the metabolic level. Muscle is insanely metabolically active. It's a huge glucose sink, glucose sponge. It just makes you healthier to have more of it, until you're like drugged up monster like me, and then it's less, but you're still good. So muscle is a good thing. If we save muscle as we diet down, even if we don't care about our aesthetics, at the end of that, we're going to be healthier. So I think a lot of folks will say, the doc says, like, I'm 55 years old, I'm a lawyer, I'm overweight, I know it. I came to the doctor and the doctor's like, look, Jim, you got to lose 15 pounds. You want to be around for your grandkids, you got to lose some weight. What do? They start cutting their calories. They don't go train. I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder guy, and I'll even sit next to people like this on the plane. They'll ask me like, oh yeah, how do you get that neck going? Blah, blah. Come to find out they don't train with weights. They're just trying to diet it off. They diet it off successfully. Here's another problem that happens if you lose muscle. It's been shown a few times that the worst, most gnarly kind of hunger you can experience on a diet is the hunger that detects a loss of total body protein, meat hunger. Like if you're not losing muscle and you're just losing fat, you'll be hungry in a diet, but it can be manageable. You start losing muscle, your body goes crazy. The cravings shoot up. So for Jim, the 55-year-old lawyer guy, I would say, look, start resistance training, then slowly pull back on your calories. Once that's a habit, you're going to build a crap load of muscle. You're going to lose a crap load of fat. You'll lose that 15 pounds, but it'll be the equivalent of losing 30 pounds with no downsides because you haven't lost any muscle. Physically, you look better. You're wearing that suit. Your wife's starting to pay you the kind of attention she hasn't in years. All good things, I imagine. That's way better than just like trying to diet it off, lose a bunch of weight, you lose a bunch of muscle, and the probability you'll rebound out is much higher because muscle loss hunger will drive most regular people to Krispy Kreme donuts, really is where it drives you, or Taco Bell. Or you take the donuts, you shove them in the tacos, you crunch the whole thing up. Something real pathetic. Yeah.
So, I mean, not to try to draw like inference from this, but could you, in essence, say that resistance training would kind of stop that meat hunger from happening because
yes, absolutely. So it's like it would reduce it significantly.
Yeah. So I mean, it's almost seems as though from a hunger perspective, resistance training may, in a way, blunt those insatiable cravings that come up when you get to that state of.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
If you supply adequate protein in your diet, that's a big 1-2 punch. Yeah. And then you just look better, you feel better. There are plenty of women that for some reason fear muscle mass. But like, how many
women
are still around? Dude, you got to look at some YouTube comments, man, or some Instagram comments. Like, I don't want to be in this bag. Okay, Deborah. Well, don't put D-balls in your salad and you'll be totally fine. Like, woman goes to sleep, wakes up as Arnold Schwarzenegger, is in shock, is not a New York Times headline we're going to be seeing anytime soon. And so you end up getting in some shape. You get some resistance training going. You are just shapelier and healthier. You feel better. Everything goes well. I think resistance training should be a critical, dare I say, indispensable part of any sort of fat loss, weight loss diet that people will do for health reasons. And resistance training is like a health panacea. It does the list of health benefits from weight training. I tried to type out once for students in a class I was teaching. After 3 PowerPoint slides, I just had to hit et cetera.
Yeah.
It's just all of them. And so huge thing to consistently train with enough volume so that you don't make sure to lose muscle. Can I do another thing?
Yeah, for sure.
Sleep. Sleep is non-negotiable if health and body composition and performance are on your radar. And look, if none of those are on your radar, sleep. I'll be the first person to say that. If you're a rock star and you're like, living fast, don't care what happens, sleep is time you can't have sex with groupies, which is terrible. What a waste. Forget sleep. But if you are serious about your health, and in a way, by that I mean like, the doctor had the talk with you where he's like, you see this blood work? This is not an example of good blood work. A lot of times what you get after that is the person will constrain themselves, the patient will constrain themselves to the kind of lifestyle they think they have to live, which is what? Client meetings, late work hours, got to go to kids' soccer practice, got to wake up at 4:30 to drive the kids to another soccer practice. So people getting 5-6 hours of sleep all the time. Now, for some people, that's enough. But for many people, something like 8 hours of high quality sleep per night is something that if they do it, their health markedly improves or at least stabilizes. The potentiation that it has on muscle growth, on performance, and on fat loss is insane. One of my colleagues, Menno Henselmans, who's a super, super expert, the guy's amazing. He summarized the literature, proximate studies on sleep loss and fat loss and muscle gain. Some you don't want to read, bro. Are you sure you don't want to read it when you're late at night at an airport and your flight got canceled and you're like, okay, I'm going to sleep 4 hours tonight? It's just bad news. You take people in the same caloric deficit. You put one of the groups of people on low sleep, 4 hours versus 8 hours, for example, for a few days. They lose, drum roll, exclusively muscle that entire time. Fat was never even touched. The same group that got plenty of sleep loses almost exclusively fat. Gaining weight, when you're, like client meetings, you're up till 3 a.m. every night, and then you're locked down the case and the boss takes you out to celebrate and you're stuffing all kinds of fun, fancy steak restaurant stuff into your gullet. That probability that food goes to muscle versus fat, if you're well slept, some combination. If you're underslept significantly, it's just infinite fat, and your muscles just starved. It's bad. Sleep is a non-negotiable, critical component to making sure that your efforts at getting leaner, at getting healthier, at getting better at sport are well directed. And if sleep isn't there in a big way, it's going to cost you. Why am I so passionate about this? I see dedicated bodybuilders and fitness people make Instagram comments or posts saying like, yeah, man, here's me training at 1 a.m. in the gym because I had a lot of client work to do today, but it's got to get done. And it's like, no, that's wrong. Go to sleep, get your good night's sleep, wake up the next morning and go to the gym. And that way you get all of the benefits of the essentially like panacea-like benefits of sleep on health and body composition and performance while also getting in your workout. When people like to do the thing where we're all #hustlers now, and like, it's got a busy life, man, I'm go. And they'll take sleep and almost use their lack of sleep as a implied insult to the other people around them that aren't going hard enough. Like, you getting 8 hours of sleep, huh? Hey, I remember my 20s. Now I've got a big family and a successful business. I can't do that anymore. Like, great. You got one foot in the grave, you idiot. So sleep has to be it's not how I respond to real people. I don't talk to anyone in real life.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Ugh, awkward. It's a big deal. Sleep. Here's the little thing you can clip out into a reel. Sleep is not negotiable. It's totally negotiable if you want dog health, dog results, dog appearance. Fine, sleep. If you want to be serious about eating as lean as you can, as healthy as you can, and perform as well as you can in your sport, sleep must be a priority. My wife and I were psychotic workaholics. We never, ever, ever sleep. Hey, do you guys want to go out tonight? What time is it? 9? Nope, we'll be going to sleep in an hour. Is it boring? Yeah, hell yeah, it is. Is it getting you to be a jacked, super healthy, lean gorilla that you can climb mountains and yell out gorilla things? Yes, and that's my goal in life.
If you do run into a day when we all have them, you get crap sleep, or 2 days in a row where you get crap sleep, are there any ways to mitigate the negative response? I mean, obviously, it's the hardest time to control your diet because you have every other signal in your body telling you to eat whatever the hell you want. But I would imagine that is the time to pay attention the most. Or does it even matter? You just up the creek and we should just be be over it.
I wouldn't be doing any massive cheating because your appetite, as you remarked, when you're low on sleep, your appetite for junk food goes up. You like poking at chicken and broccoli and you're like, ugh. It's like being drunk. You know, I don't know if you've ever been drunk before.
Like 20 years,
it's been a long time for me as well. But you remember like when you're drunk and someone's like chicken and broccoli, you're like, gross. They're like Taco Bell and you're like, yes. It's that same kind of thing you get when you're sleep deprived. I would definitely curb that a little bit. Have some protein bars, have some good food. Try to get as little stress as you can. You can still train hard and have adequate nutrition after. But I would say this, as the number of days goes up that you're not getting high quality sleep, the marginal interest you should have in fixing that rises exponentially. So if you have one bad night of sleep, you can live the next day normally. Just try to do your best with one condition. You start to tailor that evening of that second day into one that is most likely going to get you good sleep. For example, let's say Thursday night you got kind of sleep. It happens. Friday you live your Friday like you normally would. You do all your things, blah blah blah. Then your friends hit you up and they're like, dude, Friday night, what do you think? Let's go out 11. How's that sound? Normally, hey, whatever. 11 to 2, you go out with friends, sleep in from 2 to 10, wake up at 10 in the morning on Saturday. You're golden. But you know that there's something. Your kids have something. Let's say a soccer game at 9 in the morning on Saturday. Do not say yes to that 11 o'clock hangout, you moron, because you're going to get 6 hours of sleep that night. And compensatory sleep is a thing at the margins. You're going to want not 6 hours. You might want 10 hours that night to really put you back at zero. So that Friday, normally train however you would, eat however you would, except tell your wife, hey, honey, like, want to start kind of shutting it down and Netflixing it at like 8 p.m.? And she's like, yep, that sounds great. I'm beat from work anyway, a whole week. 8 p.m., you start chilling. 9 p.m., you're in your bedtime routine. 10 p.m., you're asleep. You wake up, whatever, 10 hours later, and you're like, holy, I did it. When people go, I had a bad night of sleep, and they sort of do nothing about it to prepare for the next night of good sleep, you could have that situation you just described where it's another bad night of sleep. That starts adding up. Yeah. And then the amount of fat you're building and the amount of muscle you're burning off, it starts to add up, and it's just more for you to fix down the line.
Dude, if I have 3 bad nights in a row, it's a rule in my house that I pretty much go and get a hotel room on the 4th night.
Dude, brilliant.
It's like, again, I've been with my wife long enough to know that she knows I'm not picking up a hooker. Like I can just go down the street, whatever.
Pick up a hooker. Go to the hotel. She's like,
she knows.
We have an understanding. What mama don't know, don't hurt her.
But 100%. I just go.
Great idea.
And, I'd say about 80% of the time it works. Sometimes I get stressed out about getting my sleep.
Yes.
And then I'll be like, if I'm not falling asleep in the first 30 minutes, I'm no. And then,
okay.
Yeah.
I can speak to that. That's a big problem that people who struggle with sleep have, is to start putting an emotional valence on sleep. It's such a good thing, and thus not sleep is such a bad thing. And I need this good thing of sleep so much that if I'm not getting it, I need to start freaking out. And normally, like, freaking out is something that like puts the pool cue behind your ass to get you to do something. But with sleep, it's totally backwards. I like when people say, it's just a funny nomenclature thing, try to relax. You're like, okay, am I relaxed yet? It's a contradiction in terms. So one piece of advice I do have for folks that are trying to sleep, stop trying. Set up all of the conditions for good sleep. What are they? Really cool room, really dark room, no noise distractions. I just like put rain sounds on my phone and rainstorm coming out of my phone. And then just make sure that before you get into the bed and into your blankies, you're feeling like you could sleep. If you don't feel like you're sleepy at all, do an activity that's not overly stimulative, that is a little bit fun, but a little bit boring, and then puts you to sleep. What I do is I get on YouTube, and I'm a big fan of like military strategy and technology, just for and giggles. I'll watch some of the more intellectual videos, and they're really awesome, right? But after half an hour, I'm like, the goddamn textbook lecture. And then real quick, I'm ready to go to sleep. Calmly, just get into bed. And then when you get into bed, do not try to go to sleep. Just let your mind wander. If you're tired, you're in a comfy bed, it's cool in the room and it's dark, and you let your mind wander, you're asleep. Out of here. No one lasts that. But if you're like in bed, you're like, okay, I got one shot at this. I better fall asleep in 15 minutes or else. Or else what? And if it doesn't happen for you in 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30, you know that sensation where you're just lying in bed, you're like, okay, clearly I'm not even on track to fall asleep. Get out of bed, go do another fun activity that's chill and relaxing and maybe a little boring, and then it'll bring you back in and you'll be able to go to sleep. Don't just lay in bed like this, because then you're associating the bed with the being awake, and it's all wrong answers.
It's funny because when I do go to a hotel to catch up on sleep, I will watch on Netflix the World War II like series.
So good.
And like they're in black and white.
Yes.
And it's like, it's just boring enough, but
Yes.
it's interesting.
Yes.
And watching about D-Day, and I'm just like, this is interesting. I kind of want to see this, but no, I want to go to sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now,
Now,
if
just let
it's
a sleep
something-
timer for like 2 hours, and then,
That's it, man. You're doing it right.
Well, man, where can everyone find you?
Renaissance Periodization on YouTube. I can't spell that for the life of me. So search RP Strength on YouTube or Dr. Mike Israetel, any one of those. Good luck spelling Israetel. I don't even know how to advertise myself. Just look for the ugly face and you'll find it.
Perfect. Well, right on, man.